Hello everyone, and welcome to Starsector, the game where the galaxy can be made a better place, one missile at a time. Last video, I isolated myself from civilization and built my own empire outside of the Coreworlds. But today, I wanted to do the opposite and contain myself within humanity, where we will be at the mercy of endless wars, rampant piracy, and terrible ship designs. Our goal is a simple one: build a massive navy and conquer the Coreworlds. But without being able to leave and exploit the riches that lay outside, everything will have to be claimed in blood. Can I carve out my own empire without leaving the Coreworlds, or will I be just another victim of the endless struggle for galactic dominance? We started the game outside Syndria, the home of everybody's favourite fuel dispensary and military dictatorship. Our starting fleet consisted of a kite and a wayfarer. Now, just because our wayfarer has the classification of a combat freighter, we weren't about to go running headfirst into battle. Instead, we'll be using our wayfarer for its primary purpose of smuggling large amounts of both legal and, not so legal goods. But in our case, we started on the right side of the law by taking advantage of a nearby planet experiencing a supply shortage. After dumping them on the black market and making an initial profit, I decided I wanted to go down more of the mercenary route. So, heading to the bar to look for jobs that were both inside the Coreworlds and didn't involve combat, I met a fearsome individual called Knife Metro. Alright then. Mr. Metro here was offering us a job to deploy a spy package outside of a station. Now, this was the type of work that we were looking for, as all we had to do was sneak into a system, hide in an asteroid field until we could sneak up and deploy the package. Upon completion, Mr. Knife became a potential contact. Contacts in Starsector are fairly important, as they provide us with additional quests and an easy way to grind out relations. Upon returning to him, he offered us the opportunity to steal a military ship, which for the low price of 13,000 credits and 20 marines to conduct the operation, we graciously accepted. With a hammerhead in our hands, we sat around trying to figure out how to design it until I thought to myself, maybe I should bring back a classic. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to an old friend. This, my friends, is the first ship I ever designed that actually kind of worked. Equipped with 2 chain guns, dual machine guns, and hammer torpedoes, we also slapped on safety overrides. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, is this ship any good? And the answer to that question is no. The only thing it's really good for is murdering low-tech pirates, because at the end of the day, it still had 2 chain guns on it. The next couple of jobs were to smuggle some drugs to the Syndrians, which was easy enough, and a bounty on a Luddic church fleet. Hello, Mr. Patrol Fleet. I've actually got bad news for you. I need to kill you. Which was a good opportunity to put my shiny new hammerhead to the test. Which, yeah, it was pretty effective at massacring a bunch of trade ships. Oh, yeah. Nothing beats the satisfaction of 2 chain guns with an accelerated ammo feed. Completing the bounty gave us 73,000 credits, alongside the 9 credits we got from our monthly income. Money which I spent on a couple of escorts. As you guys are well aware, I lacked the big brain energy to make half-decent designs. So for the Vigilance, I chucked on a heavy autocannon and some laser missiles. Now, you can argue all you want in the comments, but at the end of the day, the laser missiles are probably the coolest weapons in the game. With my handful of combat ships kindly supplied and funded by the pirates, it was time to use them to kill some pirates. Now, some of you may call this a betrayal to our boy Knife here, but get used to it. It's a cutthroat galaxy out there, fellas, and at the end of the day, the most important thing isn't friends, it's credits. So, taking advantage of the nearby system bounties, we headed towards the Syndrians as they were paying slightly more, and began shooting the locals. Come here, you little bastard! Hey! On a tactical front, things went a little like this. The Vigilance would soften them up with their missiles before we'd swoop in and finish them off with the chain guns. And this was going well, until a salvage fleet turned hostile. Now, even taking into account my massive dick energy, we were still massively outgunned, and I had no intentions of fighting this fleet alone. So, being a little rat, I used the story point to disengage and then lured them into a nearby Syndrian patrol. That was a bit too close. Taking the fight to them, now that we could hide behind a couple of capital ships. During the battle, we managed to single-handedly deal 24% of the damage, giving us a nice injection of both cash and relations. In fact, this gave us enough goodwill with the Syndrians to allow me to buy heavy armaments from their military markets. Heavy weapons that were needed by multiple groups of freedom fighters across the galaxy. as the Hedge had been making some early gains at the expense of both Tritech and the Persian League. When a faction conquers a planet, it falls into rebellion, which increases the price of supplies, marines, and heavy weapons. Now, selling the goods on the open market will support the government, while selling the goods on the black market will support the rebels. Now, as much as I would love to support the taxman with Syndrian weapons, they didn't want them. So I sold them on the black market and aided the rebellion. Now, I think you can sell them directly to the officials and avoid tariffs, but I don't want to hear it. After offloading our weapons, we bumped into a Luddic Path smuggler. I was thinking about letting them live. No one is going to miss someone who's smuggling weapons to terrorists, and frankly, I find it unacceptable, and the only fitting punishment was death. This had nothing to do with the highly valuable transbotonics they were carrying, which we pried from their dead hands and turned into a nice profit. Returning back to the Cindies, I purchased a shiny new carrier called a Condor and salvaged a Pirate Falcon, which is one of my favourite ships in the game because they're made for just one purpose: firing lots of missiles. Anyway, I continued moving weapons to nearby rebellions, which was incredibly profitable for us. But it did come with a problem. Once the rebellion overthrows the government, we'd get hit with a massive relationship penalty. So in preparation for this, we made some pirates disappear. Alright, Mr. Pirates, it's time to die. That kite is gone. It doesn't even exist. We absolutely obliterated it. After 3 large battles, I had earned over 100,000 credits and gained 30 relations with the Hedge, enough to hopefully offset the incoming penalties. And it didn't take too long for us to find out. With the rebellion succeeding and the planet flipped back to the Persian League, we lost a total of 12 relations. Shortly after, the next rebellion won, and we lost an additional 8. This was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, as even though we had cucked them out of all of their conquests, we were still on fairly good terms. After making some initial profits and putting together a small navy, it would be around this time that I consider venturing out and exploring the galaxy, but I can't. So, I think it was time to start whoring myself out to one of the major factions. Now, whoring yourself out is an easy way to make money, as you get paid a monthly fee, plus a bonus to every ship you kill. But to really maximize our profits, we didn't want to just collect a single bounty. So, before I went out to risk my life, I waited for a faction bounty to pop up. Now, when we killed a fleet, we'd be getting paid twice for the same amount of work. Now, I was happy enough killing small detachments of Hedge fleets, until the Syndrians decided it was time for some war crimes. Syndrians? We're sending a sat bomb at the Hedge? Are we the bad guys? I mean, I don't necessarily agree with sat bombing people, but if I can get paid for killing some ships, that's fine with me. Well, that was easier than expected. After the sat bomb, our comrades got picked by a special task group. Feeling honor-bound to defend my fellow Syndrians, I joined the battle, only for us to get our asses kicked. During the battle, we managed to pick off a few of their ships, but I think it was the Syndrians' decision to only bring 5 executors that lost us the battle. And as I was trying to retreat, we were unfortunately swamped by Mervs. Mervs! Oh, Mervs! No! With a chunk of my fleet destroyed, I limped back home only for a patrol fleet to search me due to my extreme suspicion and confiscate a majority of my heavy weapons. With both my fleet and my ego crushed, I pondered on what to do next. Turns out, it was simple. I just can't help myself supplying the enemy with guns at that price. It's such a good price. I know there are enemies, but it's a lot of money. With the money flowing back in from weapon sales, I was able to buy an Eagle in perfect condition for 50k. Now, I'm not a huge Eagle fan, but a 50k cruiser is a 50k cruiser. After bullying some pirates so I felt like a big strong man again, I aided the Syndrians in an invasion instead of a genocide. And once the station was captured, we spoke to a lady who was offering us a privateering quest. With Tritech running a faction bounty, our commission, and now a privateering agreement, we'd be paid by 3 different sources per ship we killed. So my friends, it was back to killing the Hedge. Anyway, our blockade on their capital was incredibly profitable for us, with the whole cashing in 3 separate paychecks. Sadly though, it wasn't having much an effect on their commodity tab, but my privateering did warrant a vengeance fleet. After making sure we killed it near the system so we could collect our triple bounty, we headed home because annoyingly, the Sindrians signed a ceasefire. Not wanting to stop fighting, I resigned from the Sindrians and headed over to the League, who was still at war. Now sadly, we wouldn't be getting our triple bounty anymore, but I had something better. Before I signed on with the League, I had placed down comm sniffers in both systems that the Hedge produced heavy weapons. This would allow me to keep track of their fleet movements in and out of the system. So when a trade fleet was departing with its own heavy weapons, I ventured out and took them for myself. With my constant raiding of their convoys, the Hedge inevitably sent another vengeance fleet at me. The fleet itself was nothing too special, but it did have a legion with a couple of S-mods, which during the battle I was able to make my bitch with the combination of claw fighters, an eagle, and the endless swarm of missiles. After the battle, I recovered the legion and scurried back to kit it out. Now with a capital ship under my belt, I think it was time to step up our game. So I gathered a handful of marines and headed over to Cerberus, and began raiding the planet for some blueprints until an execution fleet came to kill us, which we just baited into the Sindrians. Whilst I was here, I decided to pick up a few extra marines and some heavy weapons, and return to Cerberus as a conqueror. Now I know what you're thinking, it's probably not the best idea to conquer a planet that has been repeatedly raided. And yes, you're right, but after buying something a little spicy, we then walked in and took the planet for ourselves. As you can imagine, raiding a planet into the ground and then conquering it isn't the best of ideas. With every industry disrupted, and ongoing rebellion and stability at 0, let's just say this planet had a few issues. Now, if there's one thing I've learned from this run, it's that heavy weapons are a great asset during a rebellion, so I donated all of mine to the local government to help keep the natives in line. Shortly after, a special task group arrived to take back the planet, and this was a great opportunity to show off an old friend. With a 6-second vent time, 2 auto-pulse cannons and high energy focus, this executor tore through their navy like butter. In addition, we had 2 iron pulses that allowed us to disable their engines and let the piranhas finish the job. After this battle, I think I was done with combat for a while. I'd spent the previous 10 hours of this playthrough killing everything that had a paycheck above its head. So I resigned from my commission with the Sindrians, ending all hostility with the Hedge. Don't get me wrong, they still hated me. But at least we weren't at war anymore, giving me time to stabilize our finances as we were currently losing 130,000 credits a month. My first method to ease the burden was to offload a bunch of drugs and heavy weapons to the Luddic path, before downgrading my military infrastructure and removing the Cerberus manufacturer. With a monthly upkeep of 63,000 credits and a million different demands, we'd replace it with the more efficient heavy industry later down the line. For now though, we just slapped on some basic mining and refining. However, with the planet stability being at 0, this was an open invitation for every pirate with a ship bucket to rock up and start raiding all of my trade routes. And remember when I said I didn't want to fight anymore? Well, the next hour or so was spent fighting for my life, as I was stuck in an endless cycle of pirates raiding my trade routes, causing my planets to suffer food shortages, which lowered my planet stability back down to 0, which then caused more pirates to arrive and continue the cycle. But hey, at least we found a free battleship. A Pegasus just lying around? Yeah, I think we better pick that up. Thank you very much. On the topic of pirates, the galaxy was absolutely littered with them. With all their bases lingering outside the Coreworlds, there wasn't really anything we could do about it. In addition, the lack of stability around the galaxy because of all the war allowed them to thrive. There were so many pirates that upon trying to reach the Sindrians, I was picked by a massive horde alongside this trader. And after a 20-minute battle, I was paid 98,000 credits for my trouble. Money, which was invested into the greatest industry of them all. Tech mining. See, this was another part where we were gonna struggle. Being unable to leave and explore the galaxy for special items, we were stuck putting our hopes into tech mining. And in all fairness, the first month's production yielded us a midline blueprint package. However, our success was short-lived as beyond our initial finds, everything else was trash. Thankfully, an opportunity presented itself for us to acquire some AI cores with the remnants raiding the system next to us. So dropping in with a trio of ships, we smashed the remnant fleets and recovered a handful of AI cores, including an alpha core. An alpha core that was promptly thrown into our tech mining industry for an additional 25% extra fines. And you know what? Alongside the usual trash, it also found us a point defense laser. In better news though, our planet had finally stabilized, allowing me to finally get back to the more important things, like whoring myself out to our good friends the Hedge, who we have definitely always been friends with this entire game. The Syndrians are back at it with the sap bombs. This is what reminds me that we're on the good side this time. For real though, the Hedge was still actively trying to invade everyone, and I saw this as a good opportunity to leech off their success by raiding the planets which they were invading. Like Asher here, which had a corrupted nanoforge on it. So destroying the orbital station with the Hedge's help, we confiscated it. With the corrupted nanoforge in our possession, it was time to say goodbye to tech mining and hello to heavy industry. Following that, the next couple of months were spent raiding the Persean League's trade routes, salvaging a victory class with 3 S-mods, and taking down a massive horde of pirates. Again. Oh, 180 grand for that system bounty. Plus 60 grand commission. While the heavy industry was building, things were ticking over nicely, until Tritech decided to invade me. Now their invasion never actually made it to my system, but unfortunately for them, my invasion made it to theirs, and I conquered the nearby orbital station that was producing a ton of raw resources. After fending off their counter invasion, I took the station for myself and dismantled both the commerce and the military industry, as we were fairly poor. But shortly after, I had to rush back home as I had neglected my colonial crisis tab, and the pirates were planning a massive raid. Oh, and speaking of pirates once again, not sure how they managed this, but they had conquered Asher. Anyway, gearing up for the defense, I dusted off the victory that had been sitting in storage for a while and took the fight to them. Unsurprisingly, with 2 rapid-firing assault cannons on the front, we tore the pirate raid to pieces, giving us a 10% access buff across all of our colonies. Now, at the peak of our strength and still running out of cash, it was time to conquer our poor neighbours, the Luddic Church. During the pirates' raid, I had hired an agent to sabotage the Luddic Church's heavy industry. With their industry crippled, it should make fighting their navy significantly easier, as their ships will be plagued with D-mods. But, because the church was allied with the Hedge, we had to flip sides again. This wasn't too bad for us, as it gave us the opportunity to take over the station within our system. So, we kickstarted the war by taking the Hedge's battle station, which was no match for my fairly, if I do say so, well-built navy. With the station captured, we rushed over to the Luddic Church and began conquering their planets one by one, as there was very little they could really do about it. Oh dear. Is that the best you can muster up? I did end up fighting a special task force, but at this point, my navy was so well equipped with top-of-the-line ships and captains, there was very little they could do about it. With the Luddic Church contained to a single planet because I really couldn't be bothered to fight a star fortress, I consolidated my gains and, once again, resigned from the Syndrians. Now, I feel like we were pretty much done here. I had my small empire, and things were looking pretty good for us. But I did feel like something was missing. There was a certain item I didn't have, and I wanted one. That item being a pristine nanoforge. With only 2 factions owning a pristine nanoforge, and that being the Hedge and the Persean League, both of them were on planets which were guarded by star fortresses. Contemplating on which side to attack, the option was made clear after the League decided they were going to try and blockade me. Okay then. So, signing back up with the Hedge, I took the fight to their capital, and after a painfully long fight against their star fortress, we bombed their capital and then stole their pristine nanoforge. With the blockade cancelled due to a little bombardment of their capital, the nanoforge in our possession, I was almost content. But then I thought, if the Hedge were the only major faction with a pristine nanoforge, the balance of power was decisively in their favour, meaning it was only a matter of time before they conquered the galaxy for themselves. To solve this issue then, I stole theirs as well. And then sold it to the pirates, as by buffing the pirates, I had pretty much secured myself a continuous pipeline of work, as everyone had already been struggling to fend them off. With the galaxy now filled with system bounties, I dotted around, putting them down one by one, and laughing at how weak all the major factions had become. Until I had won the game through a diplomatic victory. Alright then, fair enough. That's a good ending, I think. Anyway, I just wanted to say a quick thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreons and YouTube members for throwing money at me. And as always, new videos every